we need an introduction for this. You can't just have the central core of the badge game not get introduced in a dramatic fashion. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to have we're going to have Shaun Price come up and talk a little bit about Shuhari, something, right? Yeah, something I can't say, and how to design your InfoSec program around it. But if you don't know, Shaun is known as Clipper. He's also known as Klippy. If you've been on your badge at all, you know who Klippy is. And Klippy is awesome. And Shaun is better than Klippy in the badge. And Klippy in the badge is pretty epic. So that's a pretty big shoes to fill there. He's going to blow you away with his talk today, whether he knows it or not. I personally reviewed every slide and added a few and took a few out. So when he gets lost, it's probably me, but that's all right because I like to troll. Anyway, Shaun's worked at Dental Intelligence for a while, has a deep history of a whole bunch of stuff, but he's going to rock this. And yeah, here's Shaun. He's going to do awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. So I'll be completely honest. That's the first time I've been introduced, especially not in a courtroom setting. So, you know, that's a joke-ish. So thanks so much for coming out. I know thanks to Chris, the scheduling was super hard this year. He had to play a lot of Tetris, and thankfully he put me in a slot where there'd be no competition. So I really appreciate that, buddy. But as I look out, it's really funny. I remember coming to my first SAINTCON years ago, and I was sitting in those seats down there looking up at the stage going, wow, someday I should try to, give that a try. And then somehow this organization and how it works is the second you show any interest whatsoever, it's like they will never leave you alone. And so I've gone from an attendee to a presenter to running a community to deciding that'd be fun to be part of several communities, help with the badge game, build the wireless infrastructure, cosplay as an annoying AI, and then I said, I should really write a talk too, which I don't know why I was so excited and so motivated the day I decided to do this, but here you are, so you're gonna get the most of that. First off, a little bit of the agenda. We're going to go over what is Shuhari, why we're stuck in Shu, take a moment of self-reflection, and then a call to action. It's funny as I look out, and on this next slide is really where I want to point this out. The content of this presentation, the reason I actually decided to do it wasn't the fact that I wanted to do even more, is the fact that this topic's really near and dear to my heart. Really, the content of this has been observed over the years of my career, and I see a lot of familiar faces, people I've worked for, people have worked for me, and you have all touched these topics to ingrain them in me. So if any of you are thinking inside, hey, you might be talking about me, you're probably right. The one central theme I want to remember is something that I learned from a dear friend, and it's Genshai. And the most important thing about Genshai, it's an ancient Hindi word that means never treat others or yourself in a way to make them feel small. And I think as InfoSec practitioners and people in this field, that's something hard for us. We really struggle with the ability to not let others feel small or let ourselves feel small. The imposter syndrome is real. And we get very jaded, and it's very difficult dealing with the same issues day in, day out, and going, why are our users so dumb? Why do they do this? And it's that jaded attitude that gets us to a point where we kind of lose that humanity in our field. And that's kind of what I want to draw a little attention to today. But Shuhari specifically, it's adapted from the martial arts. And full disclosure, I don't practice the martial arts. As far as I get is enjoying MMA on fight nights and watching reruns of The Karate Kid. For anyone who was born later than 1998, Cobra Kai is what you watch now, but for us it was something different. And I really can't tell you who the good guy or the bad guy is in Cobra Kai, because I still haven't figured it out. So if someone could explain that to me after, I'd super appreciate it. But it comes under three roots, and Shu is the first one. It means to keep. And the first thing about it is Shus, you're keeping the rules. You're following the forms. If you remember in The Karate Kid, they built muscle memory by painting the fence, waxing the floor, doing all those things. Danny didn't know why he was doing those things. They were just building those muscle memories. And we do that in InfoSec. That's something we do. We look at, CIS controls. We look at these best practices. Yeah, they're good, and we should follow them. I'm not saying we don't follow them, but what I'm saying is, how many times have we said, we keep an active inventory of all our assets? Well, why? We're supposed to. It's what we do. It's Shu. We're following the rule. And that's not a bad thing, and I don't want people to take away from this that Shu is terrible. It's just there's a better way. A good way to remember this is you're in the shoebox. You take these rules and you live in the shoebox, and this is where you live. This is where you work. That's how I always remember shoe. When we get to Hull, we follow the shoes in the shoebox. I'm bad at following slides and reading my notes, so this is going to be all over the place. Hull means to fall. Basically, what we're doing here is we're breaking the rules. We know these core concepts. We understand the importance of them, but now we get to adapt them. Now we get to change it to fit ours. A lot of times we'll use the term compensating controls in the field. We're not doing X, Y, and Z, but we're doing this. How many of you ever fill out security questionnaires from vendors or whatever? This is where you live is in HA, because you're like, no, we don't have this, but we have this, that, and the other. Now, HA's a good thing to do, for sure, but I'll tell you what, that's where y'all live, because I've done it too. We don't have full coverage on our DR, but we do have antivirus, so yes, it doesn't count, but that's what HA is for sure. But it's that aha moment. It's that moment when you say, hey, I've been doing this the same way all of this time, and I think I can make it better. I think I can tweak these rules. I think I can add something in my environment that's unique to me and build something better. The last we get to is and that's to break away. We transcend the rules. You are no longer a product of these forms or these models that you're following. You are actually building something that is yourself. We think of this of the reinvention. We've taken these rules, we've followed them, we've decided to iterate on, we decided to make them better, and now we full on reinvent them. And by reinventing these rules, this is where you'll see true success. This is where your InfoSec program will go from the big, scary security door at the side of the hall to every single person in your organization will be invested. They will be the ones who are coming to you willingly and say, hey, this feels weird, this feels wrong, I want to bring this to your attention. And so I'm going to try to explain how we get there. But first off, I want to say, why are we stuck in shoe? And this is a really uncomfortable part. This is where I was going to put a meme in for Zodiac, but he must have taken it out because he said memes do not belong in presentations. So, and this is where you do the uncomfortable truth. The problem is us. And this is the dramatic pause where we're like, how am I the problem? I'm going to just give you an example that I think is probably the most relevant one you ever have. We are a field primarily measured with negative reinforcement. And when I say that, I'm not trying to come down on ourselves as a collective. And you notice I'm saying we in all of this. I'm not saying you. This is we. This is a we problem that we have here in the industry. But let's just talk about the lovely phishing test that we send out to our users. There may have been, I haven't looked at a lot of talks because I've been down in the badge area, but there might have been tests on why we do phishing tests and why they're important. But how do most phishing tests go if you think about it historically? We send these difficult, tricky, or no longer relevant tests, right? A user will fail the test because they're gonna. That's what happens, and that's okay. And then we add them to these naughty lists. The users automatically get put in a naughty list. We re-enroll them in remediation training because that's what a lot of frameworks and a lot of guides have told us to do. If your users fail a phishing test, put them in training again. So we throw them in a 45-minute long training that they're going to put on their second window and they're going to ignore, and then they're going to guess at the answers until Knowbefore sends them that it's all good. And I'm not saying one brand's better than the other, but that's what most of you are using because that's what this is. That's what this framework is. And then the InfoSec department gets to make a slide to their board that says, we caught 35 of our users that clicked on a phishing email and we retrained them. And everyone applauds and everyone says, you guys did so good, way to remediate the training. And your users sit back at their desk and they feel unsafe. They know that they're being tested, they know they're being watched, and they know that when something goes up, InfoSec's gonna put them on a naughty list, remedially train them, and they'll be labeled terrible. So they then start hiding things. They start saying, well, you know what, if I come forward with this information, I'm not bringing it to them. I'm going to bury it. Even worse, they get a malware. They get something wrong with their machine, and they just let it run and let it rise and just hope they hide. All we've done is erode any trust and goodwill that we've given towards our users by following this pattern. And how many here have seen this pattern? How many have participated in it? We have. It's kind of the nature of the beast, and we've been trained to do that. One of the greatest examples of this by far is password requirements and whatnot. How often have we had these password requirements for years that were insane? Change it every 30 days, throw a bunch of extra characters in it, make it complex, whatever. What did our users do? They wrote it down. They added a 1 on the end, they added a 2 on the end. Did our users ever come up and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this, I could use a better way? No. They stuck their head down and just did it. And we never innovated. We lived in shoe for years until barely we're starting to come out of that thinking. So trying to think of why we're stuck in this, I want to talk a little bit about Taylorism. Now, I'm not going to hit on all aspects of Taylorism. Specifically, I'm going to talk about kind of organizational structures with Taylorism and whatnot. If you're not familiar with it, Taylorism basically worked great in the Industrial Revolution. It was a method of having repeatable tasks where we'd have workers who would come in and do a task in the most efficient way possible. If we're working on an assembly line, we have this tool ready, this tool is this certain size, we do these repeatable tasks, and we make the most efficient widget possible. And it worked great. In an environment where we're doing the same thing every day, time and time again, that is fantastic. It's so good. We don't live in that world. We live in a highly dynamic, changing world that it just doesn't fit in. However, every single one of us, from the first time we got our very first job, we live in that Tayloristic world where our manager is smart. He knows what he's doing. He will show us the way. Or he or she, of course. And oftentimes, as we're seeing, and there wasn't really a lot of career pathing for us folks in the InfoSec field, what would happen is we would go to our job, we'd get really good, and we'd get awesome. We'd learn all the technical things we knew. We were fantastic at our jobs, and then what happened? Those amazing engineers became managers. Were they good managers? No. Some were. Some thrived in it, and turned out they found a task or a skill that they didn't have. Others languished. And they were smart engineers that now are suddenly forced to deal with HR issues and give presentations to board meetings and have to deal with personnel things. I always laugh at this as we promote these folks into roles that they're not good at. It's literally like we're recruiting for the NBA on a Little League baseball field. We're not even in the right sport, but we're saying they can run, they can sweat when it gets hot. Yeah, that works. Shove them in, right? And it's so interesting how we've separated those who think versus those who do. And we've somehow, in our insane evolution of this thought, we've made it so we respect those who think and we look down on those who do. We as humans, we do things, we build things. That's what we are made to have happen. And we need to look at these tasks and these skills that we give these people and let them live and work in what they do the best. We've all worked with folks that are terrible at communicating, just awful, but they're geniuses. They've got it top to bottom, left to right. They figured it out, and they build something and they architect a solution for us, and we love it. And what do? We have them demo it to people. Why are we doing that? Why do we have these folks demo the solution where that's not their strength? They want to build and create and then let someone pitch it. That's what we should be doing, but we're stuck in this heuristic model of, yeah, that's how we do it. It's top down. My ideas are great. Your ideas are stupid. But if you happen to have a good thing, we'll put it up there on you. If it fails, you're dumb. Why'd you do it? If it succeeds, look how great I was. I guided him in that way. And it's just so interesting how we're just destroying the autonomy of our workforce. We have this idea that just put your brain in your footlocker and I'll take care of it. Don't come to me with some suggestions. Don't come to me with great ideas. I've got this. I'm your manager. I am InfoSec. I've got this badge. I went to SAINTCON. I know what I'm doing. Y'all don't. So it's me, so I can't get away without having a picture of a bike on a slide, at least at one point. That is a Rocky Mountain bike, yes, my favorite. And I always like to think about our skills as who we are, as we've got two wheels. We've got a rear wheel and a front wheel. Our rear wheels are our technical skills, our aptitude, how well we can do our jobs. Our front wheels are personal skills. And those wheels have to be balanced, unless you're riding a weird mullet bike, but that's a discussion about mountain biking that I'll do after. But we have to keep those balanced, but so often we find ourselves with a giant front wheel and a giant rear wheel, and then we put them in the wrong position where they don't even want to be. And so why can't we just live in shoe? I mentioned this a little bit earlier about password guidance and whatnot. This is how we used to do it. We used to change every 30 days, letters, number space, all that good stuff. What do you think the shoe response is to this? Okay, we'll do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's change our password every 30 days. That's fun. Let's write it down and all that. How response? Couldn't we get away with annual resets? Rather than 30 days, can we do a year? How about length instead of complexity? We've just seen this within the last few years, that's where we've gone. We've made it to ha, which is fantastic. I am thankful we've made it to ha. But what's re? This is the audience participation, if you'd like to say something here. What would be re? We've gotten to here, how do we do it better? Passwordless. Exactly. we ask ourselves the lovely question, why are we using passwords? But if we were never encouraged to improve this, we'd still be using 8-character passwords because we're just like, okay. Or the people have been doing it the right way. We say, all right, we're now up to all these specials and we're going straight to the ASCII tables now. You have to have one raw ASCII table entry into your password, right? So we've seen this. We've seen Shuhari happen in our industry, and I love it. It makes me so excited that we're getting there. And one thing I want to say is another thing that's hard with Shu is it's impersonal. Shu, by its very definition, is impersonal. It is, do this. I've taught you this way. Make it happen. You no longer are a human. You are no longer an independent person that thinks. You are a cog in the machine. You are a doer that doesn't have as high value. That is so impersonal, and that's not who we need to be as humans. And one thing I really like to bring out is we talk about cold hard facts. How many have databases in their environment and have a ton of records, and you talk about how many records you have? Has anyone ever done that one? What do we think about? Those are lines in a database, right? The records. Those who work in healthcare, what are they? Those are people. Those are human beings. Those are your neighbors. Those are your friends. And if your practitioner happens to use the software that you manage, you're likely in there yourself. And so is grandma and grandpa and all your friends. The moment we stop treating records in a database as lines of data and cold hard facts and start treating them as humans, you will watch Ha and Ri explode in your organization. The reason is you're lighting a fire within these people versus lighting a fire under them. I cannot explain how much I've loved seeing, even in my own work and in my own teams that I work with, when we see progress and we say, hey, we're doing this because we're watching out for these people. These people are having a better experience, their information's safer, and this is a better solution for them versus, look how cool my vulnerability management graphs went down this month. Look, this pie chart's smaller now. That's what we report on. We go to those board meetings, we say, look at our numbers trending down. I do it myself. I literally report those things. But do I say, Joe down the street now doesn't have to get credit monitoring for the rest of his life? Joe doesn't have to lose his car because he has his victim of fraud? That's the part we forget about. And I do it myself every darn time. And I always like to say is that the second you stop caring about the why is the moment the passion dies. And I look out in this audience and there's some friends here, people that I hold very clear, and I've probably had some of my worst fights with those people. It's not yelling, but straight up strong words in each other's faces, but literally, not figuratively. And why? We were both passionate. We both cared. The moment your workforce and your teams that you're building stops really arguing, and I don't want to say like unhealthy arguing, but when they start being passionate and start debating these things, your organization is dying. That is your first sign. The second everyone just starts going, yeah, whatever, it's fine, we're just going to go with it, your org is dying. And that's the time you need to correct the ship. We always talk about ships. It's funny how ships are always analogies for everything when none of us have probably sailed ever. It's like, like a ship is safe in its harbor. That's not what ships were built for, right? And a ship crashes on the rocks, whatever. I've never sailed, and I'm pretty sure if you put me on a boat in the ocean, I would end up on the news, or it'd be like that mysterious klippy guy that never survived and never showed up again, right? I'm fairly confident I can make it home. But yeah, ship analogies are great. With any ship that's run aground, you think about it, what's happened? Why do ships run aground in modern times? You're telling me we don't have GPS that tells us to the meter where the ship is? People stopped caring. They stopped following what they thought was right. They just said, it's fine. We won't worry about it. It's all good. I love these other phrases like, this is the way. Like, yeah, I've seen that show too. That's a terrible attitude. Don't you know who I am? I've actually heard someone say this to me, and I was like, no, I don't. Because frankly, I can barely remember the own people. I've seen their names, and I know their faces, right? This is the worst thing that is cancer in an organization. Security said so. I hate that. I hate that so much when people use that as a crutch. And they say, well, why do we have to do this? Oh, security said we did. Well, rather than say, you know what, as an org, we've decided that this will protect our users and this will be great for us, we just made a villain. We just said, hey, this department, these bozos over here are making our life hard again. And then we're like, oh, yeah, common enemy, right? How will you ever have a cohesive environment and production if you're constantly at odds with each other? Sorry, Clippy's coming out. I've seen it, and it's something that I'm trying to work on in every org I've ever touched. So one thing I want to talk about is getting from here to there. Now, I'm not saying that we're all there. I'm not saying that we're all here. I'm saying all of us have been in these positions or at some point in our careers, and we might be there now. But the very first thing I can tell you to do is make it safe. Absolutely make it safe. Every time security comes down on someone, we erode that trust. For every time we thwart an attack or every time we prevent a ransomware, we erode the trust. Now, I want to tell you a story about the time I screwed this up myself. And I think learning from my mistakes or having y'all learn from my mistakes is far more useful than me saying what wonderful things I've done. But at a previous employer, we had an individual that was very high ranking in the company get ransomware on his laptop, right? And he comes in, he's got his laptop, and he says, "I've got ransomware." And I said, "Great." I didn't say great. I said another word, not appropriate for younger viewers. He handed me his laptop. He says, "I'm just going to go ahead and pay this ransom, and you're going to get your data back." And I said, "No, we're not doing that." He's like, "Well, I need it. I have personal pictures on it." Shame on me. Personal files on a work laptop. I get it. I got to get it back. I'm going to pay the ransom. I said, "No, I will drill a hole in that drive before I let you pay that ransom." And the dude was literally shocked. He looked at me right in the eyes and was like, "How dare you?" And I dug my heels in. I was like, "How dare you put this organization at risk?" And I thought I was a white knight. I thought I was the best thing ever. And when he walked away and I thought I did so great, I felt awful. Did I build trust with that individual who's very high ranking in my organization? I got my point across, and we didn't pay the ransom, and we got his data back, and it was great. But he eroded trust. He didn't see me as a knight. He didn't see me as a defender of his organization. He saw me as no better than someone else who gave him an ultimatum. I basically personified the same people that were ransoming him myself. Now, granted, I think that's still the right call is to never pay a ransom. However, how better could I have handled that? I could have explained it. I could have educated. I could have made it safe. I could have said, "Hey, if we pay that ransom, we will be labeled suckers for everyone, and they're all going to come after us. We need to be very careful and do what's right." No, I went to power. And the second you go to power, people will start fighting back every time. The second thing to do is be humble. Celebrate those aha moments and embrace the re. And I wrote that and I kind of chuckled to myself. Embrace the re is something I need to probably put on a sticker next year to embrace the re. But make those individuals your leaders and your evangelists. Put those people in power, and put them in power. Put those people in positions where they can lead and where they can spread this. Because I guarantee as people start to get this fire within and start lighting it, this will spread in your organization. When people feel safe and they feel heard, and people who come with these great ideas get put in positions where they can keep evangelizing it, that's a great positive feedback loop. We talked about the negative feedback and we talked about the negative consequences. Giving people this dopamine hit of, wow, something I suggested happened, I built it, and it's in the org, and now I'm helping to do other people it. You've just built the most powerful team that you could possibly have done because they're going to go train others. You're training leaders. You're not training followers. Instead of getting a bunch of shoe folks, you're making a bunch of ahas, and you're getting some re's on the way. That is how you do it. And the third time is, be their champion. Be the mentor you wish you had when you were forging your own path. A lot of us here in InfoSec, it was a strange way to get here. Most of us started in just regular raw IT, and we did networking, or we did OS, or we were devs, and then security started becoming a thing, and we're like, oh wow, we really need to have security practitioners, and we just kind of slid into it, figured it out along the way, found some other folks that were stuck in the same boat, and here we ended up. But now that we've made it and we're here, we need to actually mentor those that are coming up, because I guarantee it, and we see this in every field, the ones coming up after us are going to have better tooling. They're going to have more information, more knowledge. They've learned from our mistakes, and they will be better than us. And then one last thing is, when you make it to the top of that hill, make sure you help others around you so you can share that view. It's super easy to lose sight of that. So a moment of self-reflection, and this is the part where I don't want people to feel down on themselves or whatever, but why are we coming here to SAINTCON? Why is this even a thing that we do? Do we come here to learn to secure our environments? Do we come here to participate in challenges and play one of the most epic badge games ever devised? Do we want to protect our org? Are we looking out for Joe in our database? Is that what we're doing? Or Are we coming here to join an echo chamber? Users are stupid, we're smart. I'm wearing this InfoSec badge, you're not. I command this title and this compensation and this prestige of being an InfoSec practitioner, and you guys don't. I like the money. These are all reasons that people can get into InfoSec and do it. But of the scariest one, I think by far, is the people that say, I'm the InfoSec guy. I'm it. I'm the guy that does it. Yeah, you are. And you carry the entire weight of that with you every day. And I'll tell you right now, that's no way to live. That is no way to live, having to carry the weight of an entire organization's InfoSec program on your back. I've tried doing it. It doesn't work. You have to share that load. A dear friend always would say, grief and pain shared is grief divided. As you're training these more leaders, if you're not training leaders, you're training drones. It's really what it comes down to. And you very well may be smarter than any individual in your org, but you are not smarter than all of them. And we won't be. We never can be. And one thing I would just want to always encourage us to do is fight these biases we've been building over time. Take a step back. Remember, we were users once. We've done stupid things. Even me, myself, had to go on a wild password changing ream because I phished myself. I literally had a phishing test that I forgot to, sent it to myself, fell for it myself, went ballistic changing passwords and went, oh, yeah, that was mine. Full disclosure, don't do phishing tests. Don't send those up like at 4 a.m. and forget about them. That's a bad idea. And here's one that I really actually feel really important about. Consider changing your title. A lot of folks love the title. They love InfoSec Director, CISO. They love it. Why don't you change it to something a little bit easier? How about InfoSec Shepherd, InfoSec Evangelist, InfoSec Champion? And don't just make it on payload, make that your title. Literally, when I join a call, they say, what is your title? I say, I'm the Information Security Shepherd. And then they chuckle and then laugh, and I'm like, why is that funny? I'm literally trying to guide people and show people and bring them along with me. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? And then they're like, well, how do you demand respect in the boardroom? And I said, the first thing about that is you don't. If you're going there trying to demand respect somewhere, you're doing it wrong. Let your actions and let the program you're building and the team that you're building around you be that power. So I want to talk about building the right team. We mentioned this a little bit. Building teams, there's tons of books on building teams and making the most effective team that you can. And I'll be full honest, I don't read a managerial book or a self-help book until someone literally hands it to me and says, read this, because distractions, right? And there's a ton of them. I bet you could go read 30 books and be a lot better at this than I am. But there's absolutely 3 universal truths that I've witnessed myself on every high-performing team I've ever seen. And the very first one is complementary, not redundant strengths. We see these team members, and I'm sure you're thinking about them before. I mentioned in a past talk, we've got the cowboys in your organization, right? We all have the cowboys who don't do change control, just send it, we'll figure it out, we'll do it live, we'll figure it out, right? They're smart, and they've got ambition, and they've got drive, and they want to get those things done, and we shoehorn them into these positions where they're not set up for success. We say, no, you have to do this way, you have to do that, and we just kill their innovation. Where all we have to do is slightly redirect that just a slightly bit and say, hey, we're going to pair you with so-and-so who's really good at change control, who you don't have to deal with it. He's going to take care of that for you. He'll go to the change control meeting for you if you have one. He'll present that for you and then return it for you. If that's not strengthening to you, let's make that happen. Because why would you lose a rock star of an engineer over a process that's going to make them upset? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do process. Please don't misunderstand that. But I'm saying we can do ha instead of Shuhari in these things we've done forever and make it work for us. We can adapt it. It always laughs, and I see it happen all the time when you see people, especially engineers who write code, who have to give a presentation or a transfer training, and they just languish and they suffer and they hate everything about it. And I'm like, I am so sorry for you because you are doing something that does not strengthen you. When you go home at the end of the day, you're exhausted. You hated what happened today. You didn't build something awesome. You had to talk to people. And granted, we all need to work on skills, and we will work on skills, but don't force them into those lanes that they want to. Second one is every high-performing team I've ever seen has a high degree of parallelism. How many times do we see in our orgs that I'm stuck waiting on X, I'm stuck waiting on Y, I can't do this because of whatever. The teams that work the best are the teams that are able to work on several parallel tasks independently without stomping on each other. The ability in which we can all work on things together towards a common goal is is something so undervalued in our org. We've seen it go in software development. Waterfall was the de facto standard for years and years and years, and it was horribly brittle and slow. And every time something went to testing and failed, it went all the way back. So, we go to Agile, we go to Scrum, we do all this fun stuff. We're not really doing that in InfoSec that much. We go through these compliance checklists, and rather than say, okay, you knock this one out, you knock this one out, you knock this one out, we say, well, we can't do this because we have this dependency, this isn't happening. And so a lot of us do nothing while we're waiting on one choke point. And I can say that and speak to that because I do it myself. I literally divvy out tasks for compliance tasks in that way, and I go, what am I doing? I am doing this so wrong. So that's number 2. Number 3 is your effective gap conversations. And this is one that I feel really strongly about. If you've ever done any of the Crucial Learning series, this is where gap conversations come from. But they used to call it crucial confrontations, but then I think they took a step back to make it a little bit more friendly, which is great. I always love how rebranding thing changes the message, but it doesn't. It's the same. A gap conversation is when you said you were going to do this for me and it didn't happen, this is my expectation, this is where we landed, here's the gap. Let's have that gap conversation, find out where we went wrong. People get scared when you say that. When you see an email pop up on your calendar that says accountability conversation, what would you think first? Who would be nervous? Wouldn't everyone be nervous about an accountability conversation? Who would celebrate one? Who would be happy to have one? When someone's giving me the opportunity to be better and say, hey, Clip, I thought you were going to do this and it didn't happen. Can you explain what happened? It's like, oh, you know what? It was a motivational issue, or it was a technical issue, or I just didn't have the expertise to do it. What they're doing is they're saying, hey, we're stuck. We can't fix this. What can I do to get you unstuck? But what we do is, since we're trained in that whole negative feedback loop of how we've been trained since day one, we get scared. We're like, oh crap, someone's gonna make me accountable for something, and I'm gonna feel terrible, and I'm gonna get fired, and I'm gonna not tell them that I downloaded Clippy again, and all that stuff, right? The paperclip, not me. And it's funny how we talk about these gap conversations and how I've actually seen that change in my own life. I literally, the first time I saw a mentor give me a gap conversation on my calendar, I lost my mind and almost drove home because I was like, crap, I'm getting fired. This is what's going to happen today. And all it was is, you look really tired. Is there anything I can do? And that was the accountability conversation, because I said I was going to get some certain things done. They didn't happen. He's like, you're tired, what's happening? I said, you know what? I offered to do way too many things for all these other teams, and I just can't make it all happen. And he goes, I had no idea you were working on that. I had no clue. And so by having that gap conversation, we were able to clear that up, move forward, and fix the areas where we were stuck. I just love them, and I feel so good, especially when they come from someone who might report to you. That's the best gap conversations on earth. By far will come from your direct reports. And one thing that I always need to remember and remind myself is, when you have a manager or a supervisor or a director or whatever that title may be, and you've got direct reports and you've got people above you, who do you work for? Who's your boss, really? And if you're thinking, oh, it's my CISO, it's the person above me, I'm here to say you're dead wrong. The people you work for are the people that report to you. Those are your bosses, because their success is dependent on you, and your success is dependent on their teams. A story about that is when I got my first big boy job, making finger quotes. I was, fresh out of high school. I did 1 year of college, took a sabbatical for a few years, and came back to work. And I went to work for a technology company, and I showed up in khakis and a button-down shirt, which if any of you know me, you're like, wow, things have changed. Because I thought, big boy jobs with salaries, you had to dress up when you went to work. Like, I even bought shoes that weren't $29 from Costco. They're actually a little bit more, and it's probably the most expensive shoes I bought for quite some time. And if anyone knows me, that's true. I don't spend more than $30 for shoes, but that's another story. Anyway, I show up to all dressed up, and I'm happy, and I've got this rock on my desk, just a random rock. And I'm not talking like a pebble, I'm talking like a rock on my desk. I'm like, what on earth is this rock on my desk for? So what did I do? I first saw my boss came and found me. He sat me down and said, hey, here's your desk, here's a computer, there's a rock in it. He didn't mention the rock, he just left it there and he walked off, and I said, Okay. So I grabbed the rock and I moved to the side. And I'm like, okay, the rock's up to the side. I'll just get to work. And I start typing, having a good day. Second day, I come to work. I'm just going with a polo now because I saw no one else was in a button-down shirt. So I'm like, we're going to step our way down. And there's 2 rocks on my desk. I'm like, what on earth is this place? Okay, so I grab the rocks and I move them to the side. And I get to work. Next day, there's 3 rocks on my desk. And these are big rocks that are taking up the majority of my desk. And I'm like, what? Okay, they're hazing the new guy. Got it. Hazing the new guy. Totally makes sense. But no one is mentioning a word to me about these rocks. Not like, hey, what's with the rocks? And I was too scared because it's my first job to say like, oh, why are these rocks here? And they'd be like, no, that's a secret thing that you don't talk about the rocks. So I was like, crap. So the rocks hold to the side. 4th day, you can't even see my desk because there's so many rocks on the thing. I move them, and now I have to put them on the floor. But before I went home, I actually took them off the floor and put them back on the desk where they were because I thought, what if this is a test? Day 5, there's a single rock on it that says remove the rocks on it. And I was like, oh, now at least one of them is talking to me. I've gotten to that point in my life. The rocks are talking to me. And my boss called me in the office and he goes, why didn't you ask me about the rocks? I didn't know what they were about. He's like, so you're telling me that if you've got an issue at work or something that's not going right at work, you're just not going to talk to me about it? You're just not going to tell me? No. He goes, just a little object lesson for you. When something's going wrong or something's sideways, let me work for you. Let me remove those obstacles for you. And then I kid you not, he came over to my desk, cleaned up the rocks, or the one that was there, and he literally wiped down my entire desk right in front of me and like cleaned everything like to a shine. And I'm sitting there very awkward because this is my first job. He's my first boss. And I told him 3 times, like, I can clean it myself. He's like, no, you need to remember, I work for you. And he literally washed my desk in front of me. And I'm like, this is bizarre, is what I thought. Like, this is the weirdest thing that's happened to me in the last, 3 hours. But I have not forgotten that lesson. And now that I've kind of gotten to where I've gotten now, it makes total sense. The lesson that he was teaching me that day has stuck with me for nearly 20 years now. And it's still a lesson that I love to share, and I love to, and there was the actual saying, remove the rocks, comes from another story that he told, but the object lesson was more hilarious. So, okay. I just want to come and kind of close with this, and we'll probably let you get out early if you want to catch some other talks or come ask questions or we do some Q&A or whatever. But I want to say Shu isn't the worst thing on earth. It just can't keep up. We can't keep doing Shu and expecting something better. We can't, and this is the old antivirus thing. Like, for how long did we go and get McAfee or some other rando antivirus, put all the things and call it good enough? We did that for years. Signature-based antivirus. That's what we did. And you had to have your signatures updated, and that's what you did. That was security. That was antivirus. That's what we did. Now, if you walked up to someone and said, yeah, we just install McAfee on all endpoints, we're good, people will laugh at you and say, what is wrong with you? You have to do heuristics. You have EDR, you have NDR, you have all these layered controls that we put on there that you can't just be stuck doing the status quo. You can't be stuck doing the same thing we've been told over and over again. Someone has to say, yeah, signatures don't cut it anymore, folks. We have to look at what the machine's doing and make decisions based on that. And we have to make sure we use AI and machine learning as much as we can because those words are cool and everyone will buy it and spend a lot of money. Obviously, I'm not a VAR and I don't sell anything. But in conclusion, that's about it for me. Does anyone have any questions or war stories or things that yeah, we've seen this in our work and this is why it's been the way? Or am I completely alone in these observations?
Not alone.
Cool. So if there's no questions, thank you so much. I'll be up here if you want to talk or exchange any badges, and have a good time.